this time has above all reminded William and me to reflect and be grateful for the simple yet important things in life, which so many of us often take for granted.
The passing of the late Queen Elizabeth II left behind a stormy, hidden shift of power behind the grand palace walls. Overnight, an ancient golden chest containing the exclusive title deeds to the crown's largest secret private estate was handed directly to Princess Catherine. This served as the ultimate symbol of the late Queen's absolute trust in Kate, silently raising an iron barrier to shut down the unchecked greed of Camilla's faction. The entire transfer was carried out in absolute secrecy, without a single public announcement or any prior consultation with Queen Camilla. Watching the heavy golden chest being driven toward Kate's private residence, Camila clenched her fists in the shadows, her chest heaving with absolute rage. Despite being the reigning queen, she was ruthlessly sidelined from the most valuable inheritance, while her parasitic network of relatives frantically cried out over overwhelming debts and impending financial ruin. The immense pressure from her money-hungry offspring backed Camila into a corner, turning long-standing greed into a reckless criminal act. The scheming woman decided she had to seize what she coveted before Kate could fully consolidate her presence and tighten security. Camila quietly gathered old maps of the secret palace passages and chose a stormy night when Kate was away to launch her break-in plan, officially igniting a life-or-death battle in the dark corners of the British palace. Over the following days, the atmosphere between the two royal residences grew as taut as a violin string about to snap under immense pressure. Facing the scrutinizing glares and whispers from Camilla's loyal servants, Princess Catherine chose a brilliant strategy that drove her rival completely mad, which was absolute public silence. Her inner circle called this calculated discipline a weapon of high psychological warfare. Kate issued no statements, threw no celebrations, and made no mention of the inherited golden chest to anyone. She appeared before the media looking completely flawless, wearing a radiant smile and carrying a chilling composure as if the massive property transfer had never happened. To Queen Camilla, however, Kate's total silence was nothing short of an arrogant challenge, a clear sign of a flat refusal to negotiate any terms. Camila intentionally sent word through a few high courtiers, suggesting a private meeting to divide management rights over the grand estates within the secret property. But all she received in return was cold indifference from Kate's office. Her pride as a reigning queen was deeply wounded, compounded by the increasingly aggressive demands from her parasitic family network. Camilla's nephew, a man notorious for his lavish lifestyle, heavy gambling, and crushing debts, slipped into her private palace chambers to beg for immediate help. He claimed that aggressive creditors were relentlessly hunting him down, threatening that if Camila did not secure him a permanent position or a massive financial stream from the late queen's estate, he would spill devastating family secrets to the international tabloids. This intense pressure from her own blood relative backed Camila into a tight corner, transforming her structural greed into a low, reckless criminal scheme. Taking advantage of a dark, stormy night when Kate had to attend a late-night charity event in the distant suburbs of London, Camila moved into action. Using a secret master key provided by a loyal old courtier, she quietly slipped into Kate's private office at the palace. In the dim light, Camilla's frail hands trembled with a volatile mix of fear and exhilaration. She approached the highly secure oak cabinet where the inherited golden chest was safely kept. With the deft fingers of a seasoned schemer, Camila pried open the locked cabinet drawer. Her goal wasn't to carry away the entire chest, as that would be far too obvious and trigger immediate alarms, but to steal small antique paintings and rare jewelry belonging to the secret estate that were temporarily stored there. Not stopping there, Camila gave the green light to her network of relatives for a coordinated, simultaneous strike. That very night, 3 of Camila's close relatives used the private passages reserved strictly for the Queen's family to infiltrate the secure storage vault of the secret estate. They stealthily removed 2 18th-century antique oil paintings, priceless and unreleased royal masterpieces, and replaced them with highly sophisticated forgeries crafted by a professional underground artist. They were completely convinced that with the reigning queen's ultimate protection and Kate's usual silence to maintain royal appearances, this clever swap would never be detected by anyone. Camila stood watching the precious antiques wrapped in thick black cloth, a greedy smirk plastered across her aging face. She smugly thought she had turned the tables, dealing a fatal blow to the arrogance of her commoner daughter-in-law. The overwhelming greed of Camila's faction blinded them to basic caution and common sense. Not content with just the antique paintings, Camila's nephew also pocketed several small solid gold treasures, items that were strictly inventoried under the late queen's personal name. They foolishly believed that the chaos following the queen's passing and the unsettled, complex transfer of property would provide the perfect smokescreen for their filthy crime. Camila returned to her bedroom as the clock struck 3 in the morning, her breath still shallow, hurried, and uneven. In her hands lay assets that could be flipped for millions of pounds on the black market, more than enough to sustain and silence her money-grubbing relatives for a long time. She felt an overwhelming sense of triumph, firmly believing that Kate's disciplined silence was actually just weakness, a deep fear of directly confronting the reigning queen's supreme authority. Camila's relatives quickly transported the stolen royal goods out of the palace in unmarked vehicles lacking official royal license plates. They smugly divided the massive deposits received from antique smugglers, already planning lavish getaways to exotic islands. To them, Queen Camilla was an all-powerful amulet, someone who could blot out the palace sky with a single hand and erase any wrongdoing. However, this criminal alliance had absolutely no idea that their unauthorized break-in and asset swap had officially escalated a hidden dispute into an outright criminal offense. They had unwittingly handed Princess Catherine a weapon of mass destruction, irrefutable evidence to completely eradicate the old faction from the future monarchy. The next morning, the bright morning sun streamed beautifully through the tall glass windows of Princess Catherine's private office. Upon entering the room, Kate didn't even need to glance at the wooden cabinet to sense an invisible disturbance in the quiet air. The sharp instinct of a woman who had successfully weathered countless palace storms over 2 decades told her that the enemy had finally struck in the dark. She calmly approached the heavy oak cabinet and gently touched the metallic lock with her fingertips. There was a microscopic, brand-new scratch right at the very edge of the metal. When she opened the cabinet, the golden chest was still sitting there, but its precise position had shifted about 2 centimeters from where she usually kept it, accurate to the millimeter. Kate didn't flinch for a single second. She didn't scream, call the immediate guards, or show even a flicker of panic on her face. Instead, she sat down at her grand desk, her eyes narrowing dangerously into a cold gaze. Kate deeply understood that this hidden war had officially entered a new, volatile phase, one where the enemy had committed a filthy crime and left a permanent trail of evidence behind. She immediately launched a highly covert hunt in the style of a true, professional investigator, entirely independent of the royal institution and completely noiseless. Kate's first move was to activate an advanced internal security system she had secretly set up months prior, after noticing highly unusual behavior and whispers from Camila's greedy faction. She privately summoned the head of her personal security team, men whose loyalty belonged exclusively to her and Prince William, through a hidden back door. Kate ordered the immediate extraction of data from miniature infrared cameras hidden deep within the wall recesses and the tiny crevices of an antique relief, devices completely independent of the palace's general surveillance system. On the secure computer screen, crisp high-definition black and white footage flickered to life under the infrared light. Kate watched the entire sequence of Queen Camilla stealthily prying open her cabinet lock, her aging face contorted with raw, unchecked greed as she handled the treasures inside the golden chest. This was followed by clear footage from the deep archive vault, where Camilla's relatives were sweating over swapping priceless antique paintings for sophisticated fakes. Every piece of ironclad, undeniable evidence was now firmly in the hands of the Princess of Wales. Yet Kate held back her final blow with immense discipline. She wanted to lure the desperate enemy much deeper into her trap, leaving them with absolutely no room for denial and ensuring their absolute, public humiliation before the entire royal family. Kate ordered her trusted subordinates to use paper-thin micro-tracking devices, secretly attaching them to the undersides of the frames of the forged paintings that Camila's relatives had just swapped into the vault. While assigning expert agents to closely shadow the physical route of the genuine paintings taken out of the palace, she intended to trace the entire illegal antique smuggling ring that Camila's faction was using to generate quick cash. Throughout this time, Camila and her parasitic networks remained completely oblivious, acting incredibly smug and victorious. At afternoon teas and informal gatherings with wealthy local aristocrats, Camila appeared triumphant, constantly boasting about the massive new revenues her family was about to receive from private, unverified ventures. Her debt-ridden nephew had even dropped a hefty financial deposit on a new luxury yacht, completely confident that the proceeds from selling the stolen royal antiques would soon hit his bank account. They had absolutely no idea that Kate's noose was tightening around their necks day by day, and that every single arrogant action was being recorded in meticulous detail. Kate spent hours analyzing every single frame of the covert audio and video recording. She saw clearly every trembling yet determined gesture of Camila's, witnessing the deep-seated malice etched onto the face of the woman who had manipulated palace backrooms for decades. Disgust swelled inside Kate's heart, but it was quickly replaced by the cold sobriety of a protector of the future crown. Kate's private security team soon reported that the authentic royal paintings had been moved to a secret warehouse in the London suburbs, preparing for an underground auction targeting foreign billionaires. Kate ordered her team to stand down and let the illegal transaction proceed to its final stage. She wanted to catch the whole net, not just the immediate thieves, but those harboring them and consuming the sacred royal heritage. Prince William walked into his wife's office, his face darkening significantly as he reviewed the damning video. The fury of a son whose mother had once been a tragic victim of Camila's manipulation flared up violently in his eyes, but Kate calmly placed a hand on her husband's shoulder, giving a gentle, reassuring shake of her head. She spoke in a whisper, yet her words were as sharp as a double-edged knife. She told him that they were not settling this matter quietly, but were going to let Camila bury herself and her entire parasitic clan with her own hands. Kate's hunt in the shadows had finalized its closing preparations, leaving no room for errors. The hunter knew every single move of the prey, while the prey was still heavily intoxicated by a grand illusion of total victory. Kate's silence was no longer endurance. It was the terrifying, heavy calm before a massive tempest set to sweep away the old regime entirely. Princess Catherine's hunt officially transitioned into a brutal, calculated purge striking directly at the financial livelihood of Camila's faction. Without any formal meetings or discussions, Kate launched a massive campaign to tighten palace boundaries and thoroughly expand internal audits. Through small, independent decisions made each morning, she single-handedly replaced the old power structure built on Camila's informal networks with strict, streamlined controls managed directly by the household of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The first devastating blow landed at the palace's main gate on a torrential, rainy afternoon. A luxury vehicle carrying Camila's arrogant nephew and two close relatives was about to enter the secure perimeter when it was suddenly halted by a brand-new security barrier. The gate captain, with a face as cold as ice, stepped forward and demanded their access passes. When Camila's nephew barked arrogantly, claiming to be direct family of the reigning queen, the guard used a special scanning device to verify. The device flashed a bright red light, emitting a piercing beep. Every single privilege card belonging to Camila's family had been completely deactivated by Kate's office just 5 minutes prior. With absolutely no leniency and no exceptions, the royal security detail immediately ordered them out of the vehicle. The royal car they had been using under Camila's name for so long was confiscated on the spot in front of dozens of watching palace staff. Camila's relatives were forced to walk out of the royal grounds in the pouring rain, their faces masking utter humiliation, fury, and shock. The event immediately sent massive shockwaves through the entire palace. The professional standing, prestigious invitations, and access privileges of Camila's inner circle were stripped away completely, day by day. Reputable antique dealers and major auction houses accustomed to working with the Queen's family suddenly received stern legal notices from Kate's office, warning against trading assets of unverified origins from the palace. The parasitic clan's financial escape route was entirely cut off. Camila's family and network fell into a state of profound, covert panic. They realized they were deeply isolated, permanently severed from the material gains and prestige they had exploited for years. This intense panic quickly spiraled into back pressure against Camila herself. Behind the Queen's closed doors, violent arguments and bitter reproaches erupted from her own relatives. They blamed Camila for being completely powerless, blasting her as a weak queen who let a commoner daughter-in-law corner them and strip away their livelihood. Camila found herself in unprecedented, terrifying solitude within the four walls of the Grand Palace. Frantic and desperate, she picked up her phone, trying to reach King Charles III's private number to beg her husband to intervene. Yet, on the other end, there was only the endless, hopeless ringback tone. The king was grappling with severely declining health and immense pressure regarding public trust. Faced with a critical choice between shielding his wife's greedy family or preserving the long-term stability of the monarchy, King Charles III made a ruthless, strategic calculation. He chose absolute silence, refusing to intervene publicly to avoid displaying a family crisis before the media. All of Camila's efforts to lobby for a restoration of privileges were completely neutralized by Kate's cold, hard stance. Camila's nephew, after being turned away at the palace gates, burst into her private suite at Buckingham Palace, his clothes still drenched in rain. Dropping his usual deference, he shouted violent threats and smashed several valuable items on the Queen's dressing table. He roared that his accounts had been frozen, warning that if Camila didn't handle that Wales woman, he would perish and drag the entire clan down to hell with him. Camila sat motionless in her chair, staring at her nephew with eyes full of both fury and helplessness. She felt a wave of backlash from the very people she had strained to protect. The isolation wasn't just coming from the outside, from the chilly palace corridors where servants began turning away to avoid her, but was eating away at her from inside her own family. The network of informal relations Camila had spent 20 years building collapsed in an instant like a sandcastle before an ocean wave. Courtiers who once swore loyalty suddenly called in sick or sought immediate transfers to the household of the Prince of Wales. No one wanted to be in the same boat as a queen who was being surrounded and stripped of her practical power by the future princess. Every escape route for Camila was perfectly sealed by Kate. Her strikes weren't loud, but they directly severed the financial lifeblood and honor of the old faction, reducing Camila to a queen in name only, trapped in her own monarchy without any relief from a husband maintaining a ruthlessly strategic silence. The air inside Windsor Castle these days was so suffocating that a single heavy sigh could easily stir deep suspicion. Princess Catherine, by strategically blocking all royal transportation and permanently locking down the digital key cards of Camila's entire faction, had turned the Grand Palace corridors into a cold, psychological battlefield. The profound isolation Kate engineered wasn't just made of physical barriers and locked gates. It was a razor-sharp blade slowly and systematically severing every hidden connection of the reigning queen, plunging her into a deep, dark pit of loneliness and bitter resentment. In the historic West Wing corridors, where veteran courtiers from the unforgettable era of the late Princess Diana still worked, an undercurrent of quiet satisfaction rippled through the staff daily. Scornful glares and evasive steps suddenly tracked Camila whenever she appeared in public. The historical wounds of the British royal family, the immense pain of past betrayal, and Diana's historic tears had never truly vanished from these walls. They had merely subsided for a while. And now, under Kate's cold, masterful orchestration, those memories rose like ghosts demanding full retribution. Kate's loyal attendants understood deeply that this high-stakes conflict wasn't just about protecting a secret private estate. It was a square-dealing revenge for the painful past. Inside her private chambers, Camila bore a terrifying, violent backlash from her own network of relatives. Her debt-ridden nephew dropped all outward respect, bombarding Camila's private phone with images of aggressive creditors surrounding his private suburban villa. Camila's cousins, after having their luxury royal vehicles seized and being kicked out of the palace gates in the pouring rain, frantically called her to vent their raw fury. They screamed over the encrypted phone line, deeply insulting her as a helpless puppet queen who was completely powerless against a commoner daughter-in-law. Camila looked into the large gold mirror in her room, her face deeply lined with intense anxiety and consuming anger. She understood perfectly that if she continued to take this lying down, the parasitic alliance that had secured her footing in the palace for 20 years would completely disintegrate into nothingness. The pure recklessness of someone with absolutely nothing left to lose awakened within the conniving woman. Camila decided she could no longer wait for futile, non-existent help from King Charles III, who had long since switched off his private phone and systematically avoided her. She realized she had to devise a fatal counterstrike herself to force Kate to her knees and demand the immediate return of the privilege cards and vehicles to her family. Her sole remaining opportunity lay in the upcoming International Royal Gala to be held in the Great Hall of Windsor Castle. It was a pinnacle event of supreme luxury, drawing hundreds of foreign diplomats, international billionaires, and prominent aristocrats from around the globe. Camila secretly searched her personal hidden safe for an old, leather-bound notebook, a dark repository of shady spending secrets and personal indiscretions from decades past involving several close members of the House of Wales, evidence she believed was capable of instantly smearing their global honor if exposed to the press. She planned to corner Kate in a secluded VIP lounge during the event and use this notebook to force an immediate, permanent concession. To ensure Kate couldn't double-cross her, Camila secretly used her remaining authority as queen to direct 2 trusted tabloid reporters to bribe the service staff and sneak into the outer lobby with concealed long-lens cameras. She wanted any sign of tension, anger, or refusal from Kate recorded live and blasted onto global social media that very night, turning it into an unsalvageable reputational crisis for the future princess. Camila smugly believed that under the immense pressure of hundreds of international guests and hidden media lenses, Kate would easily swallow her pride and sign the executive order restoring her clan's royal privileges. Little did Camila know, every single move she made, from digging up the dusty notebook to contacting the disgraced reporters, had been fully logged by Kate's private security via the hidden infrared system. Sitting in her quiet office, Kate looked at the log of contacts Camila had just reached out to, a cold, sharp half-smile playing on her lips. She had absolutely no intention of stopping her desperate stepmother's plan. On the contrary, Kate decided to throw the grand ballroom doors wide open, patiently waiting for Camila to walk straight into the prepared death trap with all her stolen goods and secret notebook in tow. The night of the gala transformed Windsor Castle into a breathtaking labyrinth of crystal light and splendid evening gowns. Hundreds of distinguished guests, global ambassadors, and European royals chatted amiably beneath a towering, gold-carved ceiling. Princess Catherine appeared in a flawless, radiant royal blue evening gown, her serene, poised demeanor matching that of a true commanding sovereign ruling the room. Across from her, Queen Camilla wore a deep crimson velvet cloak embroidered with heavy gold thread, her sharp, anxious eyes scanning the room like a desperate hawk stalking its prey. As the symphonic music faded into a free-mingling session, Camilla subtly signaled her few remaining courtiers to create a psychological barrier, isolating Kate from the main crowd and funneling her toward a side lounge near the large display screens. Camilla stepped forward aggressively, leaving less than a meter of space between the two women. She stared at Kate with pure, unadulterated hatred, her hand tightly gripping the old notebook beneath her heavy velvet cloak. Camilla whispered in a raspy, venomous voice, threatening that if Kate didn't immediately restore all gate passes and royal vehicles to her family tonight, the filthy secrets hidden in the notebook would plaster the front pages of every international newspaper before dawn. In response to the Queen's extreme, desperate aggression, Kate didn't even blink, her face remaining as tranquil and unyielding as a frozen winter lake. She looked directly into Camila's panicked eyes, flashed a smile as sharp as a razor, and slowly raised a single finger, signaling Prince William, who stood ready at the central control console. Instantly, the entire system of grand crystal chandeliers went completely dark, plunging the crowded ballroom into a stunned, breathless silence. Hundreds of royal guests halted their conversations simultaneously, turning to face two massive projection screens on the walls of the Great Hall that had just flared brightly and aggressively to life. A collective gasp of absolute horror rippled through the grand room as crisp, high-definition black and white footage from hidden miniature infrared cameras began to play for everyone to see. On the screens, the entire scene of Queen Camilla stealthily prying open the secure lock in Kate's office played out in vivid detail, her frail hands trembling visibly as she scavenged priceless antique jewelry from the late Queen's secret private estate. This was immediately followed by a shocking close-up video of her relatives using subterranean passages to smuggle out two 18th-century oil paintings and substitute cheap fakes into the vault. The dirty, low, and completely immoral theft committed by the reigning queen was laid entirely bare before the global elite. Camila stood completely frozen in place, her entire body shaking violently, her heavily powdered face turning as gray as cold ashes. She frantically opened her mouth to scream that it was a vile, fabricated setup. But Prince William strode forward instantly, his face as unyielding and cold as a supreme judge. Without wasting a single word, William reached directly into the deep pocket of Camila's velvet cloak, pulling out a silk pouch containing the stolen treasures along with a blinking micro-GPS tracking tag that had been attached earlier. The public humiliation reached its absolute zenith, causing Camila to collapse heavily onto the cold stone floor, the old notebook slipping from her grasp only for William to mercilessly stomp on it with his leather shoe, crushing the secrets inside. And at that exact moment of absolute despair, the most ruthless plot twist of this palace, war flashed brightly on the screen. Right next to the incriminating video evidence, Kate displayed a massive screenshot of a secret text message sent from a highly classified, encrypted number to her private phone prior to the night of the theft. The sender's identity was clear and undeniable: King Charles III. The message read plainly and coldly: Camila's private room code is 1066. Clear out the garbage to protect the monarchy. Camila stared at the massive screen, her eyes wide with pure horror as she realized the terrifying truth. Her husband of many years, the reigning king, had secretly betrayed her long ago. The king had aligned completely with Kate, handing over his own wife's security codes so his brilliant daughter-in-law could set the perfect trap, leveraging Kate's iron hand to permanently purge the greedy, parasitic family network he had grown deeply tired of. Camila bitterly realized she was merely a sacrificial pawn cast aside by her own husband into a deep pit of permanent public disgrace. The Windsor Castle ballroom fell into a deathly, heavy silence, punctuated only by Camila's humiliated, shallow gasps on the stone floor. An overwhelming sense of absolute vindication erupted among the veteran courtiers, and witnessing guests as justice and severe punishment were delivered instantly, brutally, and without a single shred of mercy. The greedy villain had been permanently stripped of her aristocratic mask right before the disdainful eyes of hundreds of high society royals. Prince William stood tall like a stone mountain before the defeated Camila, his voice ringing cold and decisive as he delivered the ultimate command. He demanded Camila remove the royal tiara from her head with her own hands and place it on the banquet table. Camila's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the sparkling crown, tears of absolute defeat and deep humiliation rolling down and completely ruining the heavy makeup on her aging face. As the royal crown hit the solid oak table with a dull, heavy thud, Camila's covert power built on informal networks was officially put to death. Simultaneously, at the private residence reserved for the Queen's family, a ruthless, systemic eviction was underway under the direct supervision of Kate's private security detail. Without needing any extra paperwork or discussions, armed royal guards marched straight into the private rooms of Camila's nephew and relatives, packing all their luggage and luxury clothing into plain cardboard boxes. The parasitic relatives were escorted straight out of the palace gates, their belongings dumped unceremoniously onto the wet gravel under a raging, violent thunderstorm. They stood shivering and weeping miserably by the roadside as the heavy iron palace gates slammed shut forever, permanently punished for their reckless greed. Camila herself received absolutely no farewell, nor a single ounce of pity from King Charles III. In the pitch-black night, she was escorted into an unmarked, closed vehicle completely devoid of royal emblems, beginning a long journey into isolated exile at a desolate, cold castle in remote Scotland. There, Camila would spend her remaining days in absolute, crushing solitude, permanently cut off from all financial resources, with no loyal servants, no prestige, and her name completely erased from all future official events of the British monarchy. As the bright dawn of a new day broke, successfully dispelling the stormy night over Windsor Castle, the balance of power within the British monarchy had permanently and unforgettably shifted toward Princess Catherine. Standing beside the fully preserved, inherited golden chest, Kate looked out the high palace window with the majestic aura of a commanding sovereign. The royal family's display of unity before public media lenses would carry on to appease the public outside, but a new era of rule defined by iron discipline, structure, and absolute institutional supremacy under the brilliant woman holding the future crown, Princess Catherine, had officially begun. Brilliant, ruthless, and entirely unshakable. Do you feel a massive sense of triumph and satisfaction at the dramatic downfall of Camila's greedy foxy? Or do you shudder at Kate's iron discipline and chillingly calculated precision in this life-or-death struggle? Do you side with the righteous cause of Kate and William, or do you believe that all royals are ultimately just pawns in the hands of the ultimate power holder? Share your deep thoughts with us in the comment section below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives. Also, click the next video showing on your screen right now. You will absolutely enjoy it.